Now, please help me welcome your director, Laura DeBar.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for coming. Some of you might know me from the Link Stage. I've been doing acting, directing, writing, producing for quite a while now. And this is my second year organizing the Bull City International Film Festival, and the library was gracious enough this year to officially sponsor it here at the library. Yesterday we had the films, today we're reading the scripts, and we have somebody taping it, like she said, so let's get started.
Barcelona Airport, Dave. A large airplane touches down on the runway. The city of Barcelona can be seen in the distance. The front doors of the airport open, and Ed Fox emerges carrying a suitcase. He's a small, dark-haired man in his early 30s. Ed stops and squints to adjust to the bright sunlight, and then proceeds to a taxicab stand. Barcelona. Ed walks around the streets of Barcelona. He has a guidebook in his hand and a camera around his neck. He walks past several buildings in the Gothic Quarter. He stops in front of a beautiful cathedral. He references his guidebook, puts it down, and then snaps a picture of it. Ed continues sightseeing. He walks down the Ramblas, Barcelona's main thoroughfare. He passes the shops and looks at the patrons of the bustling cafes. The street is full of kiosks and street performers. Ed reaches the far end and stops in front of a large statue. He looks up at it. He takes out his map. He turns the map around. He turns and looks behind him. He turns back and looks straight in front. He walks over to the right. Ed walks down several streets, constantly turning right. He returns in front of the same statue. He looks at it, but keeps going in the same direction he went before. Ed walks back past the statue. He stops and looks at it. He takes out his map. He goes left this time. Ed is back at the statue. Finally, he gives up and sits down in front of the statue. He pulls out his camera and takes a picture of himself sitting in front of the statue. Hotel, evening. A taxi pulls up to the curb in front of a quaint hotel. Ed gets out of the taxi and leans in to read the fare meter. He sorts through the currency in his pocket and pays the driver. He walks up the steps to the hotel's main door and enters. His hotel room, night. Ed is dressed in his pajamas and getting ready for bed. He goes over to his suitcase and packs his guidebook. He goes over to the desk. He looks through his carry-on. He pulls out his train tickets and his wallet. He takes them over to his jacket, which is hanging by the door. He puts them in his inside jacket pockets. Ed crawls into bed. He turns out the light and goes to sleep. A street light just outside the hotel room window illuminates the desk where Ed's passport sits, partially hidden by the phone book. Morning. The sun rises over the city. Ed is dressed and stands by the front door. His suitcase is packed. He puts on his jacket. He checks all of his pockets. He pulls out his tickets and looks at them. He takes out his wallet and looks inside. He checks that he has his traveler's checks and his credit cards. He leaves. We see his passport sitting on the desk. Ed re-enters the room. He goes into the bathroom and checks one more time that he hasn't forgotten anything. He looks through the dresser drawers. He does not go to the desk. He looks around the room one more time. He checks each of his pockets, slapping them in turn. He leaves. Ed re-enters the room one last time. He goes over to the desk. He takes the hotel pen and stationery and grabs the matchbook from the ashtray. He checks his pockets one more time and leaves. Train station. Ed enters the station. He pulls out his train ticket and scans the markings on it. He approaches a station employee. He hands the employee his ticket. The employee gestures in the direction of the gates. Ed walks to his gate and boards the train. The Spanish countryside. The train meanders through the picturesque Spanish countryside. Hills roll in the distance and farmers can be seen working in their fields. Children are playing soccer in large pastures. Ed gazes out his window at the beautiful scenery and smiles. He returns to his reading material, Death in the Afternoon. The landscape turns dustier as the train continues south to the small town of Buñol. As Ed steps foot off the train, he is approached by Enrique, a wiry, sandy-haired Spaniard.
Ed.
Enrique rushes towards Ed and grabs him in an enthusiastic hug.
Hey, Enrique.
It's so good to see you.
I hope I'm not putting you out by coming here this week.
Are you kidding? My best friend from college flies all the way to Spain, and I'm not going to put him up.
Thank you, Enrique.
You came at the right time of year, too. The festival is this week.
Festival, not the bull riding thing, that's not here, is it?
No, the Tomato Festival.
Tomato Festival? What's a Tomato Festival?
The streets of the town are full of people, most of them dressed in t-shirts and shorts or other old clothes. Large trucks bearing mounds of tomatoes are parked on the cobblestone streets. Ed and Enrique stand amidst the throng of people. Ed stares around, taking it all in. Over on the other side of the street, there is a small platform. Several well-dressed men stand in front of microphones. One of them steps forward.
We are very excited to have with us today the pride of our town, and arguably
Miguel Jose Roberto Rodriguez de la Buena Vista, an imposing, ruggedly handsome man in his 30s, turns to one of the men.
Arguably.
the greatest bullfighter in all of Spain, Miguel Jose Roberto Rodriguez de la Buena Vista. Miguel will be honoring us with a fight this Saturday, and he is now going to open the festival. Miguel!
There is a barely audible smattering of applause as Miguel rises slowly and steps forward. He holds a tomato in his hand.
It is so
Miguel pauses, trying to talk through a sneer.
nice to be here.
Miguel hurls the tomato into the crowd. Ow! The men standing next to Miguel quickly wrap a large cloth around him, which is immediately covered by thrown tomatoes. They usher him out of the crowd. The street erupts in explosions of red. Ed watches unmoving. He looks over and sees a very pretty young Spanish woman. She smiles sweetly at him. Ed bashfully smiles back. The young woman hurls a tomato at Ed's head, giggling as she does. He quickly grabs a tomato from Enrique's hand and joins the melee. The streets are covered in a red, pulpy slush. Hundreds of people are throwing tomatoes at each other. They are all covered in red juice. Enrique and Ed throw tomatoes at other people. They are laughing and having a good time. Enrique takes a tomato and sticks it down the back of Ed's shirt, smashing it and rubbing it against his back. Ed turns around and sees Enrique laughing at him. Ed picks up a tomato and smushes it in Enrique's face. The light is fading from the sky. People are heading inside. Some are getting hosed off by local merchants and homeowners. Enrique and Ed walk up the main street. They are less dirty, but still covered with red pulp. Ed gets a little bit ahead of Enrique. Enrique reaches down and scoops up a handful of tomato slush. He grabs the back of Ed's shorts and sticks the pulp down his pants. Then he runs into the nearest bar. Ed yanks at the seat of his pants and waddles after him. On his way into the bar, Ed scoops up a handful of tomato slush. The bar is dimly lit. It is full of people, many of them sticky and red. A cigarette haze fills the room. Ed enters and squints around the bar looking for Enrique. He sees him going to the restroom.
Hey, Rick.
Enrique sees Ed and quickly scans the room for a safe place to hide. All the seats at the bar are taken. Enrique rushes over and stands behind a well-dressed man, confident that he is safe. In slow motion, Ed launches the slush at him. It flies across the bar. Enrique sees it and ducks down. The slush hits the back of a man's head. Ed stares open-mouthed at the man. The entire bar goes silent, mouths also agape. The man slowly puts his drink down on the bar. He begins to turn his head. Ed grimaces. The man continues to turn around. Ed closes his eyes. The man is still turning, looking at patrons as he turns. Ed opens one eye. Finally, the man turns all the way around and rises off the stool. It is Miguel. Miguel scans the room. He looks down at Enrique. Enrique points directly at Ed. Miguel snaps his head up and quickly scans the room again. All of the patrons point at Ed. Miguel glares at Ed, nostrils flaring.
How dare you!
Ed swallows hard. Some of the tomato pulp from his shorts plops to the ground. Ed looks down, sees it's just pulp, and looks back up at Miguel.
I am so...
Miguel holds up a finger and cuts him off.
No!
Miguel straightens up and sticks his chest out.
Do you know who I am?
Ed looks helplessly at Enrique. Enrique mouths, Miguel Jose Roberto Rodriguez. Enrique tries again. This time he waves an imaginary cape.
Oh, you're the dry cleaner.
Enrique covers his face with his hand. He tries again. He puts his fingers up to his head, simulating horns. Ed gasps. He stares at Miguel.
El Diablo.
Miguel looks at him, confused.
¿Qué? No, I am Miguel Jose Roberto Rodriguez de la Buena Vista.
This gets no reaction from Ed.
I am the greatest bullfighter in all of España, not a laundering devil. And you have insulted me.
Well, hey, my uncle was a rodeo clown. Maybe you know him? Slappy Slim?
Miguel stares at Ed with eyes full of rage.
You dare compare me to a clown?
I just meant you both run away from bulls for a living, that's all.
Run away?
Miguel walks toward Ed, pointing his finger at him.
Now listen to me. You think you are a man because you make the jokes about the clown. Let me tell you what a man is. I look death in the eye every week and I taunt it. I taunt it and I don't back down. I am a man. Now tell me, are you a man?
Miguel stops right in front of him. There is another plopping sound. Miguel and Ed look down. They look up and stare at each other.
How dare you! You!
He grabs the front of Ed's shirt and drags him over to the bar. Juan, a well-dressed older man, sits next to the empty bar stool Miguel vacated. He is already staring at the two of them, as is everyone in the room. Miguel drags Ed up to the bar and shoves his face close to Juan's. He hits Ed in the chest with his finger as he talks.
This man is going to fight the bull. I want you to set up a fight for him on Saturday, right before mine. He can give the crowd something to laugh at before my fight, like a rodeo clown.
He lets go of Ed and Ed falls to the floor. Miguel and his entourage leave the bar. Ed watches him in terror. After Miguel is gone, Ed turns his head and is eye level with the still cowering Enrique. They stare at each other.
I think you took that pretty well.
Night. Enrique and Ed are walking to Enrique's apartment.
He's trying to kill you.
Oh, that was just drunk talk.
Enrique shrugs and starts walking faster.
Wasn't it? Hey!
He runs to catch up with Enrique. He grabs Enrique's arm and stops him.
He was kidding, right?
Enrique looks away.
Okay, fine. I just won't show up.
Let me tell you a story. His brother forgot to take his car in for repair. Miguel tracked him down, tied him to the back bumper, and drove through the streets. And that was his own brother. If you don't go, he'll come after you.
So I can either fight El Toro or El Diablo.
He ponders this briefly.
Do you know anyone who can turn me into a matador in a week?
Enrique's apartment. Enrique's apartment is small and cluttered. There are 2 desks, each of which holds a computer and a ton of CDs, papers, and other assorted mess. Ed sits slumped in a chair. Enrique dashes to the phone.
Who are you calling?
My cousin.
Ed picks up the remote control and turns on the television. He begins flipping through the channels.
Why, is your cousin an undertaker?
A matador. Well, was. I'll see if we can go over there tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Well, let's go now.
Oh, it's way outside of town.
Enrique dials the phone. Ed turns the sound down on the television and continues channel surfing.
It's Enrique. I have a favor to ask. What do you mean? You already heard about it. It happened 20 minutes ago. Press conference? What press conference?
Enrique looks over at Ed. Ed points to the television, horrified. On the screen is Miguel. He stands before a bank of microphones. He is talking and gesticulating wildly. He reenacts for the crowd of journalists the events of the vicious tomato attack.
We'll be there first thing in the morning.
Bullfighting training school. Morning. It is early morning. There are several students and their instructor working with the training apparatuses. Ed and Enrique walk through the bleachers. Ed looks around, searching for signs of the matador. Enrique spots Luthia. She is a surprisingly young woman. Luthia waves to Enrique.
Where's the matador?
That's her.
Ed stares at Luthia. He sighs. They walk up to Luthia. She appears to be looking for someone.
Hi. Thanks for meeting me. This is my friend Ed.
Hi.
She looks behind Ed.
Where's your other friend?
What other friend?
Enrique looks around, confused.
The bullfighting friend.
This is...
Enrique points to Ed. Luthia starts laughing.
Hey,
Luthia keeps laughing.
I'm standing right here.
Luthia looks at Ed. She looks over at Enrique and tries to stop laughing. She stops briefly. Ed and Enrique watch her to see if she is finished. Luthia bursts into laughter again.
That's it, I'm leaving.
Ed turns and storms away. Luthia composes herself.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Ed turns and looks at her. He reluctantly walks back over to her. Luthia extends her hands to him.
We got off to a bad start. I'm Luthia.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Luthia. Lucia.
Oh, Lucia.
No, Luthia.
Okay, Lucia.
He sounds a bit like Daffy Duck when he says it.
Sorry. Will you give me bullfighting lessons?
Your friend, he lisps?
She looks at Ed. She studies him.
I'm sorry, but I can't help you.
Please, you're our only chance.
I won't be an accessory to murder.
But he held a press conference.
Just don't go.
She starts to walk away. Enrique follows her.
We are talking about Miguel Jose Roberto Rodriguez de la Buena Vista. He's insane. You know that. Remember what he did to his brother? Remember what he did to you?
Luthia stops dead in her tracks.
You hate him. And now he's trying to kill Ed.
No, he's not. He's just trying to scare him.
Either way, don't give him the satisfaction of thinking he's won.
Luthia turns and faces them. She looks Ed over one more time, top to bottom.
I'm not going to be a part of this.
But he's my friend.
If he needs a ride to the airport, call me.
No,
But
Luthia.
this, no.
Luthia.
Luthia starts to walk away. Ed follows her.
Please.
She stops and faces Ed.
My whole life, bullies have picked on me and I've run away. I don't want to run away this time, at least not without trying.
Luthia contemplates Ed. She smiles at him.
Inside you beats the strong, brave heart of a chicken.
She hugs him and slaps him on the back.
What the hell does that mean?
Come on, we have work to do.
Luthia's farm. Luthia owns a large piece of property where she raises bulls for the local fights. The three of them stand next to a bullpen.
Okay, we have only 1 week. Have you ever been near a bull?
No, but I'm guessing that's one?
He points to a huge bull standing in the corner of the pen. The animal is tied by a harness to the fences. It stamps its feet and rears its head menacingly.
Okay, try this. Just go in and slowly approach him.
In there.
It's okay, he's tied down. Just don't get too close.
Okay.
He doesn't move. His upper body leans forward, but his legs don't budge. Luthia and Enrique watch him.
Go on.
You mean I'm not in pain yet?
Luthia and Enrique each take one of Ed's arms and try to drag him into the pen. He slowly goes face down, his body stiff as a board. They drop him face down in the mud. Luthia kneels down beside him.
Let's start smaller.
Okay.
Luthia and Enrique stand inside the pen, leaning casually on the fence. Ed runs by screaming at the top of his lungs. A very tiny calf with a little cowbell around its neck trots happily along behind him. Luthia puts her head in her hand. Enrique looks over at her. Then his gaze follows Ed as he runs back the other way. Ed screams. The baby cow stops in front of Enrique and starts eating some grass. Enrique smiles at the animal, then looks up and sees Ed crossing the pen again, still screaming. Luthia stands by the fence. She watches as Ed runs by, screaming at the top of his lungs.
Stop, please.
Enrique
Stop.
follows him, pushing a bullfighter's training apparatus, which resembles a wooden wheelbarrow with a set of horns attached to it. Luthia's living room, afternoon. Luthia leans against the desk in the corner. She watches as Ed runs in circles in the living room, screaming. Enrique chases him, holding his fingers up to his head like bull horns. Luthia shakes her head.
Wait, let's take a break. I have a headache.
Luthia's dining room. The three of them sit around the table eating lunch. Ed sits with his head in his hands.
This is hopeless.
Maybe you can outrun it. Or deafen it with your screams.
We still have time. You just need to ease into it.
I don't know how this can be your job. Weren't you scared all the time?
Yes.
So I'm doing all right then.
No.
All of the great bullfighters have admitted to being scared at least some of the time. You have to take the fear and focus your energy towards the bull, not away from it.
Towards the bull?
Yes, yes.
Ed!
Ed snaps his head up and looks at her. She shoves a bull hand puppet at him. Ed screams and falls out of his chair, then crawls quickly towards the dining room door. He stops and turns around. He sees the bull puppet again and screams. Ed continues to crawl out of the dining room, still screaming. Luthia slaps the hand with the puppet against her forehead. In town, late afternoon. Enrique, Luthia, and Ed walk along the street.
At least we can make you look like a bullfighter.
She enters the shop, followed by the guys. In the tailor's shop. The shop is small and cluttered. There are two dressmakers' mannequins in the shop, each one wearing a beautifully detailed suit of lights. The tailor, a kind-faced old man, smiles when he sees Luthia. He goes over and embraces her.
It's been too long. Are you going to fight again?
Before she can answer, he turns to Ed and Enrique and addresses them.
This woman is one of the greats. She should have never retired. Her kills were always clean and her fights were really something to watch. I can't wait to tell my wife that she's back.
No, I'm not fighting again. My friend Ed is fighting this coming weekend.
The tailor looks at Ed.
Oh yes, you're the one. Come with me.
He leads them to the fitting room. He takes his tape measure and begins measuring Ed.
The bullfighter's costume is very important. It is known as the trajes de luces, or suit of lights. It is a long-standing tradition. It is the pinnacle of masculinity.
Taylor hands Ed a pair of bright pink socks. The tailor is hoisting Ed into the very tight pants. As he yanks on the waist, Ed rises completely off the floor.
The bullfighter is more than life and death. It is more than man and beast. It is an erotic representation of man and woman.
The tailor gets the pants on and laces up the sides.
How do these fit?
A little snark.
Ed is dressed in a different set of pants and a matching jacket. The tailor is adjusting the collar. When the tailor lets go of the collar, Ed falls straight back onto the floor. Ed stands in front of the mirror. He is dressed in a complete matador's outfit. The tailor places the black hat on his head. Ed looks in the mirror.
The matador, epitome of the Spanish male.
Ed arches an eyebrow while admiring himself in the mirror. Bar. Night. Enrique and Ed sit in a small bar. It is fairly deserted. The door flies open and Miguel enters with several people in tow. Enrique sees him.
Oh no.
Ed follows his gaze. Miguel looks around the bar. He spots Ed. He walks toward him grinning.
There you are. I was looking all over for you. I thought you'd have left.
He sits on the bar stool next to Ed. He slaps him on the back so hard that Ed nearly falls off the stool.
Bartender, a drink for Tomato Pants Matador Clown.
It's okay, we were just leaving.
Miguel puts his hand on Ed's shoulder and firmly holds him in place.
No. I insist. We are colleagues now, but I do not even know your name.
It's Ed.
Miguel appears to be waiting for Ed to say more.
Ed? Ed what?
Ed Fox.
Again, Miguel waits.
Ed Fox what?
Ed Fox. Nothing else.
Miguel swigs his drink. He slaps Ed on the back as he rises to leave.
I look forward to seeing your fight, Ed Fox, nothing else.
He walks out of the bar. His entourage follows him. Ed and Enrique walk towards Enrique's apartment.
That guy's such a jerk.
He called you a colleague. I think he's starting to respect you.
Ed stops dead in his tracks.
Oh.
Enrique follows his gaze. All along the street, walls are covered with big posters featuring a picture of Ed running from the baby cow, a look of abject terror on his face. Beneath his picture, in Spanish, is written, Saturday, 2 p.m., the magnificent Senor Tomato Pants.
What does that say?
It says you're fighting on Saturday.
That's not all it says. What does the rest of it mean?
It says you're magnificent.
Lucia's farm, morning. Lucia's in the pen holding a cape. Enrique is also in the pen with the bull puppet. Ed is watching from the side of the pen. Lucia raises the cape and spins out of the way of an imaginary bull. She flourishes the cape and maneuvers repeatedly as she lectures Ed.
You have to get close to the bull, but leave enough room to turn. Don't let him pick a corner to hide in. Once he does that, you won't be able to draw him out. And watch which side he leads with when he charges. It is up to you to lure him the other direction. If he leads with his right horn, steer him left. If he leads with his left horn, steer him right.
What if he's horned?
She stops and stares straight at Ed.
You die.
She extends the cape to Ed.
Your turn.
Ed takes the cape from Lucia and approaches Enrique. Enrique charges at Ed with the bull puppet. Ed twirls and gets completely wrapped in the cape. He tries to free himself but gets more wrapped into the cape. He topples over. Ed manages to get his face out only to see the bull puppet right in front of him. He screams.
Ah!
Enrique and Lucia help Ed out of the cape. They face off for a second attempt. Enrique charges. Ed twirls, this time wrapping all three of them into the cape. They stand underneath the cape in silence, not moving. We see Enrique raise his puppeted hand. Lucia's living room, afternoon. Ed sits on the couch in front of the television. Enrique stands in front of a bookcase that holds videotapes. He selects one.
Lucia said you should watch some bullfighting highlights to get a feel for it.
Enrique puts the tape in the VCR. He sits next to Ed. On the television, we see a matador artfully executing his passes. Ed nods approvingly over at Enrique. He resumes watching. On the television, we see the same matador get lifted by the bull and tossed.
Oh! That must have hurt.
On the television, we see another matador. He is immediately gored in the rear end.
Oh!
They continue watching. After a few minutes, they cringe again.
Oh, Jesus!
Enrique makes the sign of the cross.
What am I supposed to learn from this exactly?
Enrique jumps up and turns off the TV. He removes the tape from the VCR. He reads the label on it.
Oh, this is probably the wrong thing. But you could probably learn more from this.
Luthea's farm, later. Enrique walks out of the house, followed by a terror-stricken Ed. They cross to the pen and see Miguel inside, baiting the now untied bull. He has Ed's cape in his hand and is doing fancy footwork. The bull charges. Miguel holds up his index finger to the bull.
No!
The bull stops dead in its tracks. Miguel stands up straight, smiles, then turns and walks over to the fence. He scales the fence and hops off, landing in front of Ed and Enrique.
Senor Tomato Pants, I see that you have started your training.
How did you know I was here?
Senor Tomato Pants, I know all.
Ed takes a step back. Miguel smiles slyly and looks around. Ed continues stepping back and Miguel follows him.
Is Luthia here?
What are you doing here?
I came to offer you my expertise. I think it is only fair you should probably be properly trained before you go into the ring.
I already have a trainer.
It is no good. You will end up fighting like a woman.
What have I told you about coming here?
Luthia stands behind Miguel, a bullfighting sword pressed into the center of his back. Miguel grins.
Don't.
He turns around to face her, and as he does, the sword cuts a line through his shirt. The lower part of his shirt from the chest down falls straight to the ground. Miguel looks down at his exposed torso. He looks back up at Luthia. He smiles seductively.
You don't have to play Matador to get me undressed.
Luthia jabs Miguel lightly in the chest with the tip of the sword. He puts his hands in the air.
Oh, are you still mad at me?
Luthia moves the tip of the sword from his chest to his groin.
Yes.
He looks down at the sword point.
You wouldn't hurt a Spanish national treasure.
Luthia flicks her wrist.
You would?
Miguel looks back up at Luthia.
Perhaps another time.
Miguel carefully steps back so that he doesn't step on the rest of his shirt, which is now around his ankles.
Senor Tomato Pants, I hope you do not destroy the dignity of the Tauromachia.
With that, Miguel reaches down, picks up the lower half of his shirt and flings it over his shoulder. Luthia and Enrique watch as Miguel storms away. Ed stares in awe at Luthia.
Could you teach me how to do that?
No.
The pen, evening. Luthia stands outside the pen, leaning on the fence. Enrique is playing the bull again as Ed flourishes the cape. Ed's maneuvering is better. Enrique moves closer to him. He charges, and Ed turns and runs, the cape trailing behind him. Enrique trips over the cape and falls, taking Ed with him. Luthia watches, unmoved. Ed jumps up and storms over to the opening of the pen. Enrique follows him. Ed stops in front of Luthia.
This is ridiculous.
Yes.
Ed turns to Enrique.
I'm sorry, but we'll have to see each other another time. I'm going home.
Finally.
Ed and Enrique stare at her. She shrugs. Ed storms towards the house. Enrique is still glaring at Luthia. Ed's bedroom, evening. Ed is searching frantically through all of his belongings. He looks through all the dresser drawers. He gets on his hands and knees and looks under the bed. He goes to his carry-on. The pen. Luthia and Enrique are walking towards the house. From inside the house, we hear Ed's anguished cry.
No!
It echoes out all over the quiet countryside. Luthia and Enrique run to the front door. Train station. Morning. Ed and Enrique stand on the platform waiting for the train.
I can't believe I have to go all the way to Madrid to get a new passport.
American Embassy, Madrid. Ed and Enrique enter the embassy. Ed and Enrique sit on one side of a large desk. The door opens and an embassy employee enters. She is a stony-faced woman in her early 40s. The employee is looking at a file. She sits opposite them.